Surprising study shows 91% of all anti-LGBTQ bills failed in 2022. Sometimes good news can come out of bad news. According to the Human Rights Campaign, there were 315 anti-LGBTQ+ bills introduced in state legislatures last year, but 91% of them failed to become law. That's one of the findings in the 9th Annual State Equality Index released Thursday by the HRC Foundation and the Equality Federation Institute. The largest proportion of the bills introduced out of 149 specifically targeted transgender and non-binary people, particularly youth. There were 80 bills aimed at barring trans youth from playing school sports consistent with their gender identity, and 42 bills to prevent trans and non-binary youth from receiving gender-affirming health care. By the end of the 2022 legislative session, a record 17 bills attacking trans and non-binary children passed into law. Overall, 19 states exclude trans athletes from school sports, and 5 states restrict access to gender-affirming health care. Another trend was curriculum censorship legislation, restricting instruction on LGBTQ+ issues and other marginalized communities. Across the country, 70 curriculum censorship bills were filed and 7 passed into law, including Florida's infamous Don't Say Gay legislation. You know, I think this is a great point to bring up, because oftentimes we hear the negative headline and we don't hear that this stuff doesn't go through.
That's right.
We hear about some crazy law in Tallahassee. We don't hear that a judge threw it out. And It's like, what are you, crazy? Like, you can't do that. And so I think because some are getting through, we really need to be focused on what's real and what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just as important to know, okay, there's a lot of hope. A lot of this stuff is not really going to happen, but the stuff that is happening, we need to be on top of it. In healthcare, me working in healthcare for a very long time, you know, the idea of telling a young person, right, that they cannot receive healthcare, that their mental health is at risk. This is impacting their families, it's impacting their schools, it's impacting their friends. Nothing happens in a bubble like you were talking about. Everything has a ripple effect. Yeah. On a healthcare professional to tell a family or a child, I'm sorry, I can't help you, when you know you can, right? We've been doing it for a long time, for a long time. This puts us in a really, really horrible position. And so the laws that did pass, we're coming to change those. It's not acceptable. You know, we have to give our children the best that we have. Yeah. They deserve that.
And it just goes back to what we've been speaking about earlier. It's just basically everyone being vigilant. We know that there are, I'm going to just say, the senior people that have been there since, you know, George Washington. And they are, you know, very consistent with how they feel about change. And so it's like the change management. It's okay for change, right? It's okay for innovation and to evolve. And as a human race, it's, you know, we're at a point where we must realize that we are just all one. We're all one. Take out the color. That's why, like, now that we have the generations that are saying, I'm non-binary. I don't identify with, you know, A or B. I love it. And,
you know, Jasmine, I want to ask you specifically. You're the target of lots of legislations going on around the country. We've reported this week and last week of new legislation that's being proposed to completely ban drag performance. That unless it has an adult classification, like going into a topless strip club, that you can't see drag. Your reaction to what you're watching. I know the politics you have felt. I've heard you say that you personally haven't experienced it, but or you're pretty strong to it. But what do you think about what we're watching in terms of this example of people are just proposing all kinds of things? We know it's not passing, but that they're talking about it. What do you think?
I mean, I think I just read something today that in Arkansas they passed it. They've decided to go ahead and make it illegal to have a drag show, unless it's in an environment where it's considered basically a strip club. So that's what they're trying to, put us in that pigeonhole and make us a part of that cliche community. But also, like you said, look how many things aren't getting through. I think they're trying to use fear and they're trying to scare us and they're trying to pit people against each other. And like you said, we're seeing all the proposals, but we're not seeing that they're failing. They're trying, as we are becoming more accepting and more open and our communities are breaking down those barriers, the people who are in that position of power, as if they're losing grip, I think they're just trying to propose whatever they can. And it's continuing to fail, and it will continue to fail. And then talking about the whole non-binary and the gender non-conforming, 10 years ago, we didn't have that verbiage. We didn't have that. So if we would have did that study 10 years ago, we probably wouldn't have gotten the same result. I think as our community continues to evolve, that's why they're starting to attack children in schools and change policies, because the next generation is continuing to learn how to grow and evolve, and they're learning to be more accepting. So how do we do that? Cool. Gay adults who are happiest were the ones who were supported as children. So we're going to take away that ability to get healthcare, take away that ability to get counseling, gender reaffirming at a young age, because now you're going to grow up and be afraid and you're consistently going to be put back into that wall. So they're trying to keep you becoming a successful gay adult person by stopping you at a child.
I am quite sure if Ron DeSantis watches this, he has every reason to be scared of drag queens. What reason?
Pretty smart.
Well, I was going to say, they're very smart. It's not just entertainment.
I
You
love
have
the
to be
observation.
smart to be that good of an entertainer.
Drag is activism. Like every day when I do this, wherever I go, it is definitely a political thing, especially with the beard. Like everything that I'm doing, anytime I walk out, anywhere I go, I am a face for my community. I have to represent, and for me, I have to have a thick skin. I'm a representative as a house. I'm a representative for different brands and companies that I work for. I get met with a lot of adversity, and I'm ready for it.
There
you go.
Two things that I think are important for us to consider in this story is, first off, this is red meat for HRC. I congratulate the HRC Foundation to take the time to provide this analysis, because even for me, who looks at this every single day, the 91% wouldn't have been the number I picked in terms of proposal, in terms of actual passage. So that is really helpful. We want to live in fact. That's what we're doing here, and the HRC Foundation helps us do that. The other thing that is interesting, I think, and valuable in this survey study report is they quantify the culture war. What they're doing is saying they're throwing out things to create culture war fear. It overwhelmingly is not successful, but maybe that's not even what their goal is. What their goal is to sit and propose and propose and propose, and the news of that creates the fear of culture war. I'm worried about what the radical people of color LGBTQ community, or what we're doing to our children and why we're taking away parental rights, or what our drag queens are doing to us, or what trans people are trying to do with bathrooms and it's not true. And this helps us understand that may be not what their goal is. Their goal is to drive fear in the first place, not to pass legislation. It's not real. That's not what they're trying to accomplish. And then the other thing that I think is important to me, and I'm as guilty as anyone in America in LGBT for this. I talk Marjorie Taylor Greene, I say her name over and over again, Matt Gaetz, this crazy radical group of people. I may be helping, unfortunately, propel this culture fear that they do, by saying their name and talking about the latest ridiculous thing that they're proposing, of which 91% of the time there's not a chance in the world that it will pass. But I'm participating in it from the media standpoint. And this crazy Long Island senator, congressman, what's his name again? George DeSantos. I'm sorry, did I get his name? DeSantos.
I think his name's in IT.
I perhaps am propelling in an inappropriate way, and I should guard my words very carefully, because their goals are very insidious.
Right, and then just remember the flip side of that. While they're trying to put fear into marginalized communities, hopefully that fear will lead to them not voting. At the same time, it's also really emboldening people those same fears to show up and vote because they're afraid of that change.
Yeah.
And they don't know that 91% of the time it didn't, but they think somebody's coming to change them.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they know, they're very insidious, but they know exactly what they're doing, which is why it's important for us to stand up every chance we get and to speak against it.
Amen.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.